then he was martyred. So the main problem with the church in Smyrna was the persecution. Why? Because Smyrna was the first city of Asia Minor who got the permission. If you wanted to build temple to the emperor, you have to get the permission from Rome. It was not simply you decided to make the temple. It was honor and privilege for the city to get it. So Smyrna was among the first one, and they built the temple to Tiberius. And this is really the reason that persecution arose here in Smyrna, because Christians, they really refused to comply with the popular demand. So Mr. Attila, he will tell us about the, but there is not too much to be said. The message to the church in Smyrna is the church, together with Philadelphia, does not receive any rebuke from Christ, only praise. But the situation among them was not as glorious as you say. The fact that they did not receive rebuke from Christ doesn't mean that they did not have problems. They had the problems, and one major problem, they lived in constant fear. So in light of that, please just allow me now. I will read with my accent. I know that you miss it if somebody else read it. I'm sorry, I'm just joking. Okay, I would like to read this message. I hope I will receive very well. To the angel of the church in Smyrna, write, these are the words of the one who is the first and the last, who died and came to life again. By the way, we will be talking about that. I don't know, is it this Sabbath or the following Sabbath is. Jesus Christ always introduces himself to every church. And the way how Jesus always introduces to the church relates to the situation in which the church was. You see, the church was persecuted. They were afraid of being killed and martyred. And Jesus says, don't worry, I went through that experience, and the first and the last, I was dead and I became alive. So now your only hope is actually in me. And this is what we have, just a brief description of here, what you have. Jesus says, do not be afraid of what you are about to suffer. I tell you, the devil will put some of you in the prison to test you, and you will suffer persecution for 10 days. Be faithful even to the point of death, and I will give you the crown of life. Whoever has ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. The one who is victorious will not be hurt at all by the second death. Now you can see the whole situation of this letter, and the content of the letter is related to that situation there.
Neolithic settlements around the city, but the early Bronze Age settlement is up to the northwest on a hill there. But after Alexander the Great, you see the hill there, there's a Turkish flag up. Down under those fortifications, under a tree, he had a dream, and then according to the story, after that, the new city was built right over there on the top. Sorry. Hello? Then the city was built up there with the fortifications. Still those fortifications there are from 324, 326 before Christ. And then they built a theater to the north, west of the hill, down under the slopes. And then a stadium just behind this, agora, to that direction over there. That stadium was the martyrdom place where St. Polycarp, was burned on the stake there. And the agora is quite a big one. And from agora, there was the main road going to the pier. And on the road, just before the pier, there was a temple dedicated to Zeus there as well. It was not a big city, not one of the big Ionian cities, as I said before, but it was a beautiful city. The bay was beautiful, and there was a lagoon just before the pier, because by time the small river of Meles, silted it, So this lagoon is now closed and filled with soil. But in those days, ships could get in safely into those into that lagoon, and they could buy things here, take their needs and etc. and then go on. So that was a nice, beautiful stop for all those navigation people. It was not a big export harbor at that time. But by time when Ephesus, silted, and when Ephesus started to lose its, importance, this city became bigger and bigger and bigger, and now it is the third largest city in Turkey, indeed, still inhabited. But first, let's go in.
Well, 5th century BC, because this was the birthplace of very popular Homer.
Homeros.
And
Trojan.
that's, once you have such important person as people invest in the city and the city grew up. It was very, very beautiful.
There are, many people's opinion is that he was born here, Homeros. There are some other sayings as well, some other birthplaces as well. But he was known as a native of Smyrna in those days. But remember, Trojan War was fought at about 1240 before Christ. But Homeros was born about 730 before Christ, some 500 years later than the real battle. But his epic lyric poem is still, known by. The green grass at the central part was the agora, marketplace of the city. In big Roman cities, there were 2 or 3 marketplaces, 2 or 3 agoras. Probably more. In general, one of those agoras were the state agora, and the others were private agoras. In the state agoras, slave trade was not permitted even in those days. But in the private agoras, it was permitted. Women were not allowed in unless they got special permission. They could take this permission only if they lost all men in their family. So women could be seen seldomly here in the state agoras. And in the state agoras, the main trade was on some strategic things like bronze, iron, wheat. Wheat was also strategical indeed. But at the private agoras, all sorts of trade was possible. And this basilica, which you see here, right from west to east here, is the second largest basilica ever from the Roman ages. Second after Trajanum in Rome. The length is 160 meters, 29 meters is the width. It had 3 stories, so passengers, having a promenade there outside, could get into the agora by using this entrance here, as we do now, and they could climb up to the entrance floor and the first floor up above, and then they could get into the main area at the center and do their shopping. There is another stoa, with colonnaded stoa, and a basilical building on this side over here. But if you like, I think we can go in for a short, sight and take a sight from the main area.
Just to experience,
For example, wheat, wine, those were sold, in some special cups. So those were controlled by those public people, magistrates, in other words, and they had their room in basilica. Basilicas at the same time were a sort of commercial courtyard. If there was any dispute, then they were taken care there in the basilicas. So this long building, which is 160 meters long, the second largest in the world, it was a basilica. And this was a stoa.
For your information, 160 meters is about 160 yards.
Okay, football field.
It's equivalent.
5
It's-
football
it's
fields.
90 centimeters.
No.
It's
How
1
many?
yard.
No, one and a half.
it's-
One and a
it's
half.
close.
1.5 football fields.
And this was a stoa. You see the columns here in Corinthian style. And just behind, there were the shops. Down under, the weight of those shops were carried by those arches here. And there are even cross walls, cross arches to carry the heavy weight up above. On the corners there, down on the corners there, when you go down, you take a look there, there are some cross, arches for the weight over there. So it's an interesting architectural matter there. And there were two entrances. One was from the place that they read it, the other was from there. And just at the entrance, the south entrance, you see there's an arch over there. There's a needle and arch.
Yes.
At the midpoint of this arch, there's a human figure, a woman figure, a head there. That was Faustina, Marcus Aurelius' emperor's wife. Because the agora was destroyed during the earthquake at 178. Then Marcus Aurelius restored it, raised funds, and then the agora was restored, as in many other places. Marcus Aurelius was a very popular emperor. He donated a lot, raised a lot, and he was quite popular indeed. He himself was also a philosopher, studying a lot about philosophy. So the length of this, stoa here is about 75 meters, 18 meters width, and hundreds of shops were around this area here. But unfortunately, later on, when agora lost its importance, when pagan gods were not popular anymore, then some part of this agora started to be used as a necropolis, burial place, both by East Romans, and then by Byzantines, and then by Muslim people. So you see there are many tombstones over there. Some of them are Ottoman, Islam, some of them are Byzantine, tombstones over there. At the same side. There is a stoa, as you see some columns on the left-hand side. This is the eastern stoa. Some part of it is down under street at the moment. But the excavations started and they will try to, open that part as well. It's quite a big agora indeed, compared to a relatively small city in those days. The population was not so big, but as it got a nice lagoon-like, well-protected harbor, it was well trafficated by the navigating ships. That's why probably they built such a big agora. And as I said, right after the Ephesus harbor was filled, then Izmir started to get bigger and bigger and bigger, as it has an enormous hinterland, starting from 220 kilometers north, 230 kilometers south, 280 kilometers east. All that fertile area, sent their products to Izmir to be exported. Still, it is today the same process is going on. Yeah, you see the flag there and the fortification wall. This is the Mount Pagos. 140 meters is the altitude over the sea level. That was the place where Alexander the Great, ordered that the city should be constructed there.
Is that how old those walls
yeah,
are?
yeah. And the theater's Kavea, they are now going to open it. You see the mosque there with the minarets. Just to the left of the mosque, towards us, there is the Kavea side.
Oh yeah.
Now they started to excavate that place as well, because it was all full of houses. Now you see they are getting rid of those houses. You see over there the ruined houses, and then the whole area is turned to be a park, and then the excavation will start there as well.
It's nice place to visit, but there is nothing with regard to the first century there. But it's really nice. And Mr. Attila, where is the stadium? Where was the stadium located? Do we hear it?
Stadium, theater was there. Stadium was behind this agora, down below those houses.
Okay.
I will show you the plan of that city in those days.
It was a large stadium, about 22,000 people could accommodate. Very, very similar, as large as the one in Ephesus. So you will get, idea.
Water fountain is from.
How big is it? How many?
Yes, it was.
Colosseum in Rome?
Probably, as there were so many springs here, water springs, they built agora
How
here.
big is that? How many?
And every day it was trafficated
Probably something like that.
by a lot of
More
people, crowds.
I know.
As
Yeah,
it got spring water,
It was the
clean spring water,
Probably
still
the most famous.
running there. And then there were many cisterns in this area as well. So water was very abundant.
Colosseum is the same
And
as
one of the reasons why they have
Yeah, that's what we call
chosen this
stadium.
place was
Seems
probably
like they
water.
built the agora and stuff like that on the valley down below.
Due to the topographical inclination of the area here, the northern entrance had to be lower because there is the inclination towards the hill over there. Yeah.
So what happened to the floor of the basilica? Are we standing on the floor?
No, no. This is the natural, topographical land that as we step on.
Yeah.
But some part of it was filled to get it plain, to get it smooth and plain. But the area was, let's see, like that, you see, from the hill, like this. So here, the basilica had 3 stories. To the west, 2 stories. To the east, 1 story. But the basement was kept at the same level by using those arches and walls to carry the weight up.
So where's the spot that Polycarp was martyred?
Stadium.
Behind in the stadium, which should be somewhere there, down under the buildings over there.
It's a ruins.
We know its situation where it was, but not excavated it,
Oh, not yet.
because there are houses. Now there's a project, and they were just starting to, take over those houses here.
Buy those houses,
Then
yeah.
in this neighborhood came the Syrian refugees. So most of the people living there are now Syrians at the moment.
You know, you have to keep in mind, whenever Romans punish somebody, that was always a public event. They would never just go
Quietly.
to bush there and do it. They wanted to teach lessons to others. This is what will happen to you. So usually stadium was used as a place for
And
some.
invite many
And
crowds
since
of
Polycarp
people.
was very prominent person, he was the elder, and Romans actually respected him. They tried to save him, not to do it. So they wanted to do it. So evidently, most of the people in the city were present. There is, by the way, a book written, "The Death of Polycarp." It's good to read.
How was he killed? Burning?
86.
No, how? How?
He was burned at the stake.
Burned.
Wow.
Well, shall we give a time there, which was the backside of the gymnasium palestra there? Palestra means the training, field for the students there to go out and to train in sports. Because they were pentathlon competitions, and through their obligatory education, they got many sports courses as well. So you see just the backside of the palestra training field over there. And on the right-hand side, there is the synagogue, which I mentioned before. And on the street here, there were many small shops. Some of them were owned by Jewish people. Even their names are written there because there were inscriptions on the wall. So now in Latin, figures, you can see their names as well. Some of them were selling, for example, wine. There were small wine shops on the road as well. Some of them were giving food as well. Coppersmiths, bronzesmiths, goldsmiths, because Sardis was a place where they produced all the time gold. You see, there are steep hills over there due to the erosion. All those hills were eroded, so there are some steep, hills there. Before that hill over there, there's a small spring. We will see later. That was called Paktolus in the past times. At the moment, it is called Bakırçay. And along the small spring there, they were obtaining gold. And this is the place for the first time where they produced 24 karat gold. There are different sections in those huge area. This is a part where we have the gymnasium, the baths, the restrooms, the trade, street here, and the Royal Road, the famous Persian Royal Road, was starting right from here, all the way to Persia, to their capital city there, which was starting from here, Sardis, and then Gordion. Gordion was the capital city of Phrygians, King Midas's city, as you know, with donkey ears, if you remember from the mythological stories. And then after Phrygia, it was going to Cappadocia, and then to Malatya, and then to Nineveh, and then all the way to their capital city in Persia. 2,800 kilometers road, Royal Road, was starting right from here. You will see the traces over there. So it was a junction point at the same time from east to west too. Many trade caravans had to go through here. So, for example, on the right side of the road, where you see some covers there are the so-called bronze houses, because early Bronze Age items were discovered here. Still, the excavations are going on, and the first excavation started by Professor Hanfman from Harvard, and then now they have a joint expedition and excavation group here coming every summer from Harvard and Cornell universities. So it is still going on. We don't have time to see all that big city indeed, but to that direction, to the northeast, there's a place called 1,000 Mounds. Nearly 1,000 artificial mounds you can see there. 75 of them were belonging to royal people, princes, nobles, and they were in artificial tumulus mound type. And at the bottom, deep down at the central bottom point, were the burial sites, burial places for those people. And to to the left side of this road, if we have time, perhaps we can go there as well. If we turn to left by bus, we will leave the spring, Pamukkale River, on our right side, and then you will see Kibele, the mother goddess altar there, just near to the road. And there were the gold production, purification ovens there. How they could obtain, gold? First by eliminating the copper outside, and then the silver outside, and then they could get 24 karat gold, and they minted their coins from that 24 karat gold at 546 BC during Croesus' period. This is why there's a saying in English, still today, it says, rich as Croesus. His treasures were very famous. He decided to, defeat the Persian king at 546, but he couldn't. Actually, he was almost going to defeat, but then there was a total sun, eclipse. So the war postponed. It was at a place called Cappadocia, where we have a landscape like moon, with fairy chimneys, underground cities. It's a very famous site. Close to there, on the banks of Red River, Halis River, it was the battlefield, but it was postponed. But on the Second War, he was defeated in that respect. So the city was plundered by Persians later on. So for a time, there were satraps. Satrap in Persian means the governor, provincial governor. So those provincial governors were ruling the area here. And then we see Alexander the Great, Hellenization. This area in the past was called Lydia. Lydia. And Lydia's capital city was here, Sardis. It was a broad, wide, big city full of merchants, and another very famous item which was produced here was sart. Do you know what sart means? It is quartz. Quartz is a valuable stone. It was valuable even in the past times as well. So they were obtaining quartz, and they were, in those days, they were using it either as a crystal or as accessories for ladies as well. Because ladies were keen on accessories even at Neolithic ages. At a place called Çatalhöyük, they discovered makeup set from 7,000 years before Christ. So it was a big, highly trafficated, rich, fertile area watered by Pamukkale and some other small spring and rivers as well. And on the road to the east, beginning point for the road to the east as well. So we are now right here. You see, this is the palaestra. You see that wall here. This is the wall that you see here. Okay. This is the palaestra. This is the synagogue that we're going to meet now. And those are the baths sections, the Roman baths for the students of the gymnasium there. This is a Roman building indeed. The synagogue is a Roman building as well, but very early. Late 2nd, early 3rd century AD, and it is the largest one from those days ever you can see. But at the other side of the road, you see here, there is the temple of Artemis and the gold purification areas with Kibele altar. Not excavated yet, but further up there on the right side of the road, we have a theater and stadium there as well as an agora too. So let's go to the synagogue at the moment, and round up there, those were the seats. You see those holes there? Those were the seats, and anything dropped down was, just disappearing in seconds because the rate of water down there was quite speedy, so it was taken away immediately. And that small channel you see around was for fresh water, sweet water, to clean themselves afterwards. Or sometimes they were using sponge on the top of the sticks to clean themselves. Although it seems as if they were sitting just side by side, and they were doing so, but between each person there was a small arm, stay, from marble. So they were closing themselves by putting their arms on the right and left hand side, and in a way they were separated from each other. Yes, this is a Roman toilet.
This is a toilet. For business. Oh, and the holes for the. Yep, and then this underneath flushed away the stuff, and then we went Oh, he said there's like a Mars.
Producing dye stuff here as well. The main dye production place was Laodicea and Hierapolis, because they got a large stock of purpura, shells, two sorts of shells, purpura. They could give the violet purple color, which was the most sacred color in those days. So the popes later on, for example, and in those days, high-level priests and the emperors, they have their coats always made from purple color. Well, this was the old main street, connecting this part to the other bronze houses section, to the theater and stadium section at the other side of the road, as you see some part of it on the top of the mount there. And it was almost 14 meters wide, but very big street indeed, even wider than the one in Ephesus. Ephesus Arcadius Street is just 12 meters wide. This is even wider than that. And from that point over there, the Royal Road, the Royal Persian Road, was started all the way to the Persian capital, to east. A small, snacks restaurant on the left-hand side. I will give later on you what the Roman daily life was. I mean, how many times they were feeding themselves, what they got as food. It is said that they had parties, big fests, and they were almost eating until they died. But those perhaps happened a few times through their history, but the ordinary and usual life was not like that at all. Usual Roman person had meals twice a day, and they were quite light indeed. But if it is a fest time that they were going to drink and eat a lot, then sometimes even they were using duck feathers to make them vomiting to continue to eat afterwards. This happened as well, but only seldomly. It was not the ordinary life at all. I will give this later on about the daily life.
Yeah, don't want to be full, huh?
Another shop belonging to a Jewish person called Jacob.
Jacob.
Literacy rate during Pax Romana time, which started late 2nd century BC and was up to Constantine's period to the beginning of 4th century AD. Then the literacy percentage of the people raised high up, so high that Europe could get the same rate after 17th century.
Oh.
So many people were literate actually. And this is an office, because there were some secretaries here. Those people who got some problems or complaints, they could come here to the secretaries and they could talk their problem, and they could write a document for them to go to the court or to the magistrate or to the basilica, where they got the commercial courtyard. The other side is the synagogue of this wall, and that was the main water channel to the synagogue over there. Down there, you see, down under the arch, there was the main water channel. To raise the platform, to keep the building above, hold it. Otherwise, it should sink down. You see, if you look down there, you see some big marble blocks there. Can you see them down there?
Yeah.
They are from Hellenistic period, which means from about 3rd century before Christ. The upper wall is from Roman. 2nd century. Well, people who have around are the pieces of that big monumental arch spread around now. There were many earthquakes here in the past as well. The largest one was at 17 AD. And then at 178, another earthquake. 336, another earthquake. So there were always earthquakes, and time to time they had to rebuild or restore the old buildings as well. So at the other side of the road, there are the so-called bronze houses. There are findings from Bronze Age there, as I said before. It is under excavation still. And the royal road was starting right from here, all the way down to the Persian capital.
What is the dating of this?
This is Roman mosaic from 12th century.
And what do we know what this says, or?
It is written in Greek rather than Latin.
Yeah, Greek.
Huh? Yes. Sanfo, you are entering to the sacred and clean part of the city, it says.
The clean part. Good to know.
This is BC or AD?
80, 3rd century.
Did you hear that, Ron? He says we're entering the sacred and clean part of the city. It's right here.
I have the sacred, but not sure about clear.
It's like rapper down there.
Rather than the villages, actually, the people living in cities are quite keen to find cheaper material everywhere to reuse. So most of the buildings, antique buildings made out of marble, were ruined because people were rushing in, taking the marble stones, plates, etc., to use them again. Because otherwise, the cost was so high to get them in those days. For example, I can tell you, 2 slaves in a full day could cut only 2 inches of marble. Imagine. So this is a very costly business. So then, if a temple, if a theater, if an antique building was, abandoned or banned, because some of them were banned by time to time, then people were rushing in, taking those, marble plates, stones as a construction material for the new ones.
But not here.
And sometimes with earthquakes, they were also, destroyed. Here they got big earthquakes as well.
The synagogue dated back to when?
3rd century. End of 2nd, early 3rd century. Imagine, in those days, such a synagogue is very seldom to see anywhere. This is one of the largest largest synagogues in the world.
2, 3세기라는 2, 3천.
No, not yet. Tell me,
Would you like to take?
tell me, what is the reason about the time of this synagogue? Second century?
Late second, early third century.
Yeah, so
AD.
I always believed it was third century, so there is a chance that it is also during second.
So when Paul was here, it was not existing.
Yeah.
There was another synagogue and many more synagogues as well, but smaller in size. This is a
Actually,
monumental one.
We don't have indication that Paul was here, but maybe he was, but it is not recorded.
No, during his journeys it's not mentioned either.
Yeah, it's not mentioned. And should we also go to visit that gymnasium?
Yeah.
Oh, it's here. Okay. Oh yeah. It's
Jewish boys, they are taught to read Talmud, Torah, and then during their ceremonies, they come here and they read. And all Shabbat days, on Saturdays, the rabbis, the Chachams, the rabbis, were coming here and reading the book right on the table there. Well, no, there were seats, marble seats indeed. I mean, they were at platform. They were not sitting and reading. They were standing and reading, but there were platforms down
No,
there.
they were platforms.
So this, the levels there.
For the elderly in this case. Lion you see on the right hand side and left hand side. Lion became a symbol in Christianity later on for salvation. This is the table to read Torah. Indeed, they were not reading in that time. But there was a platform there, by night. So coming up and reading. Well, the size of people changed continuously. When it was peace and welfare, then the sizes went higher. When it was continuous war, then they were diminishing in size as well, because it was depending not only on genes, but also feeding and lifestyle. For example, Japanese people in the past, they were very, short in size in general. But the new young Japanese, they are almost 190, 2 meters. Their volleyball team is very high, those guys. The youngsters are very taller. So during the history, it was so the same. If it was peace and welfare, then the sizes went higher. There was a Christian, community since the 1st century AD here. Yeah. But most of the first Christians were Jews.
And they worship here.
But there are
There were even a small community who were Gentiles. Some became Christian, and there were some people who were Jewish, but they practiced Christianity as well.
But they all worship together.
No, it was just a synagogue for Jews.
But not Christian.
Nothing.
But the outside shops,
Many of them were owned by Jewish people.
this is all mixed.
Yes, indeed. They were Christians, Romans, atheists, pagans. They all had mostly at homes or caves or safe places. Where did they find it? Because it was not always persecution, but time to time they were persecuted. Mostly by, for example, Nero, Diocletianus, for example, Domitianus. Domitianus was not popular at all. He killed a lot of people.
And wealthiest cities of ancient world. And the name, you probably heard it, I'm sorry, I'm summarizing just that the message to the church in Sardis becomes meaningful to you, okay? The name of the greatest king of Sardis was Croesus, which is considered to be one of the wealthiest kings of the ancient world. And then Sardis and Croesus were conquered by Cyrus, Medo-Persian. Okay, and this was really the end of the glory of Sardis. By the time of the book of Revelation, this is very important now what we are saying. You will see how it's related to the message is that at the time of the book of Revelation, how many of you are Europeans? Okay, can you now help me? If you lived 30, 40 years ago in Europe, you wanted to do good shopping, where did you go? To Paris. Paris was the name for anything you wanted to buy, you have to achieve. Today, nobody goes to Paris any longer. Why? Because we have many, people do not go, for shopping. People go because Paris is still an important city, but just one of many cities in Europe. 30, 40 years ago, it was the city of Europe. But still, Paris is significant. Why? Because it lives of former glory. That's exactly what happened to Sardis. At the time of the book of Revelation, Sardis lived of former glory. I hope that you will keep it in mind, okay? The few other things, just details to mention about Sardis. There was the temple of Artemis. And we know that Artemis always had prostitutes there in the temple, but this is not related to the letter here. There was Cybele, which was the mother of all gods, and in the temple we have historical records. They indicate the male eunuchs there who were in the temple. But very significant about Cybele was that pagans attributed to her power that she could restore people to life. Please, all these details I'm just mentioning are related to the message to the church of Sardis. And in order what I want to say, we want first to see, come on, we have honor, the president actually, to present the message to the church in Sardis. So please, can you do it? And then we will go through the message and you will see many details that we want to film how rooted in the historical reality of the city of Sardis. Yes.
To the angel of the church in Sardis write, these are the words of him who holds the 7 spirits of God and the 7 stars. I know your deeds. You have a reputation of being alive, but you are dead. Wake up. Strengthen what remains and is about to die, for I have found your deeds unfinished in the sight of my God. Remember, therefore, what you have received and heard. Hold it fast and repent. But if you do not wake up, I will come like a thief, and you will not know at what time I will come to you. Yet you have a few people in Sardis who have not soiled their clothes. They will walk with me, dressed in white, for they are worthy. The one who is victorious will, like them, be dressed in white. I will never blot out the name of that person from the book of life, but will acknowledge that name before my Father and his angels. Whoever has ears, let them hear what the Spirit says to the churches.
I think the president deserves one applause. Come on. We are not honored very often, you know that. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Okay, please, let us just point to few details. I will not speak too long. We will find a way to say much more what is common to all the churches. But I know every time when we read this message, we all jump immediately to the devotional stuff. Don't know what it means from our contemporary perspective. But I believe the details that I just provided to you and more details I want to provide to you will make complete sense that the Christians who lived in the first century, living in this city here, and I will explain where really the city was, is when they read that message resonates with that historical reality. They understood clearly what the message meant. So please let me explain what we have here. By the way, I don't feel comfortable lecturing here. Usually, I was always comfortable lecturing there because I wanted everybody to see that city on the Acropolis. By the way, that was original Sardis. But Sardis, because of its wealth, started growing and expanding, so covered all this territory around. That's why we have the synagogue, we have the temple of Aphrodite. Are you still with me? But this was the city there. At the time of war, this was the city that was protected, not this area. You know always who suffers the first one in war situation. So keep that in mind. And I would like now to go to analyze a few texts here, and you will see how the early Christians really understood the message clearly to them. It says, to the angel of the church in Sardis write, these are the words of him who holds the 7 spirits of God and the 7 stars. By the way, in the orange bus, I provided the information about something that is related to all the 7 messages. You will notice as you are studying the messages to the 7 churches that they follow the same format. Each message begins with that, thus says the one. And that one is not mentioned by name. There are few characteristics by which he introduces himself to that particular church. I don't know if it makes sense to you. And please, probably we'll talk more time about that. If you go to Revelation chapter 1, John is in the trouble. He is filled with the fear there on Patmos. He's in fear of his own situation, and he's the fear of the 7 congregations that he left there in Asia Minor. He's far away from them. He cannot help them. Keep in mind, he's on the prison island, okay? And then on that Lord's Day, which is really the Sabbath day in the book of Revelation, Jesus comes for 2 reasons. Number 1 is to comfort John, to encourage John in his situation, and also to give him encouraging messages, okay, to those churches. So do you see, a pastor who is in trouble gets the messages from Jesus Christ to encourage the congregations that are in troubles. But there is something very interesting. When John sees Jesus, you remember, he says, I was on the Lord's Day, and I heard the voice speaking to me. He recognizes the voice immediately. That was the voice that he was listening to for 3.5 years. He turns around to see the voice. What did he expect to see? That man from Galilee, walking in the sandals on the dusty road of Palestine. He turns around. Oh my Lord, how have you changed? That's not that man that he knew that. That's a glorified Lord. And John wants to the readers of those 7 churches and to us as well, he wants to describe the appearance of Christ. But there are no words. How can you describe the Lord in all his glory? Just go to the rest of the Bible. Whenever prophets, they see God in his glory, they're always using symbolic language. His eyes are like flame of fire. His face is glowing. You know, that's what John is doing. And please, when you have a time, read one more time for yourself the portrayal of Christ. John begins here, white hair, and he goes down to his feet. And everything that comes between is describing him. Okay, that's just introduction. We'll talk more about that on other occasions. Now, We have 7 messages that Jesus gives to John to send to those churches. And in every message, before Jesus evaluates the situation in those churches and giving them urgent advice how to get out of the situation, okay? How to restore relationship with God. Jesus first introduces himself. Look, every 7 messages. That says the one. Come on. That says one. Who is that one? The name is not mentioned. But what does John do? He takes some of the characteristics. Please. He takes some of the characteristics of Jesus from chapter 1, the description of Jesus, gives to the church in Ephesus. Some of the characteristics gives to the church in Smyrna. And we saw in Smyrna, I am the one who was alive. I came back to life. They are persecuted. They're facing life, death, situation. And Jesus encouraged them now. How does he come to the church in Sardis? By the way, I didn't finish it. To each church, John gives some of the characteristics of Jesus to chapter 1. Now, when you go to the 7 messages and take all those introductory characteristics of Jesus that are given, when you put them together, what do you have? You have the Jesus of chapter 1. No church is able to grasp the complete Jesus. We all relate to Jesus within our circumstances. My experience with Christ is different, Pastor, than yours. Yours is different than mine. That's why we need, when we are all together in the community, we experience the complete Jesus, his influence, and his working miracle in the community of the believers. No one of us has the complete experience of Christ. It's only within our needs, it's only within our circumstances. Yes. So let's see how actually it works with the church in Sardis. Okay, it says, these are the words of him who holds the 7 spirits of God and the 7 stars. Jesus is holding the destiny. But why the 7 spirits? It's not one spirit. Number 7 is the number of fullness. And what are the activities? What is the Holy Spirit does? He gives a life to the lifeless. Why does Jesus come to this church, introducing himself to the church in such a way? Please, let's read the letter. It says, I know your deeds. You have the reputation to be alive. You are a Paris of 40 years ago. Are you still with me? But today, what are you? But you are today dead. Have you mentioned Christians? It always amazes me whenever I travel that people come to me, they want to talk. You know what that message means to me? Let me tell you, when I was young, they're always talking about their relationship with Christ, what happened 30, 40, 50 years ago. But you go to talk to the pastor of that church, he says, that person is useless in the church, completely, nothing. But it's always right to talk about the past. You see, this church, based on the reputation of the city, had a glorious beginning. God used it. But the time when the book of Revelation was written, just had a name. But in reality, it's completely dead. It's so cold that you can skate outdoors on the icy floor of the church. And now Jesus says, wake up, strengthen what remains is about to die. It's dead. And there are still some Christians who are surviving there. They are about to die. And Jesus says, for I have not found your deeds completed. I'm using Greek. It's complete. It means to its fullness in the sight of my God. He says, now, remember, therefore, what you have received and heard, hold it fast, and repent. If you do not wake up, I will come like a thief. You will not know at what time I will come to you. Now, this comes now in view that city. I still have hard time to understand how safe that city was there on the hill. In ancient world, that city nobody was able to conquer. The problem was the enemies always wonder how people on the top of that mountain and that Acropolis, how they came down. And there was the entrance, there was the road from the top to down. But Sardians, they're keeping that as a great secret, and that's how they felt secure. There is no enemy that will come there to the top. And you know, when you feel very secure, confident, what happens? You don't provide a guard there to take care, because nobody is able to reach the top. And there are two kings. It was Cyrus the first, the same Cyrus of the Bible, who brought to the end Sardian and Cressus, okay? He was the first one, and second was Antiochus, the third one. Okay, it says that Cyrus sieged the city for a long time, but Sardians were laughing there. Hey, nothing can happen to them. They are so safe. And the story goes in this. Sardis really became so frustrated. He did not know what to do. So he took a few soldiers and he went there at the foot of that hill, looking Sardis there, and figure out with his generals what to do. Should they abandon the project or try to find a way to conquer the city? You know that. At that moment, one of the soldiers who was a guard there on the top, standing on the wall of that, he looked there, he wanted to look there at Cyrus. At that moment, his helmet fell down from his head, going down through that secret pass there, all to the foot. Cyrus was so happy, he invited his good soldiers, and there was no any difficulty. They really found the entrance. They just waited during the night. Of course, Sardians, they were so secure, they were so proud. Nobody can harm them. They even didn't put a really guard there, train them to take care of the protection of the city. And the soldiers, with the Persian soldiers, they're climbing through that secret pass. They came there. They surprised everybody. They did not have any difficulty actually to conquer the city. They caught them at a surprise. Should I read the text one more time? The Christians who lived in Sardis, how this resonated to the experience. He said, "Remember therefore what you have received and heard, hold it fast, repent. If you do not wake up, I will come like a thief. You will not know at what time I will come to you." They understood very, very clearly from the historical, records of the city. By the way, very similar situation happened when Antiochus the third one, few centuries later, came here to the city. The city fell in the same way. I hope that we can see when God sends His message to His people, how He's using the concept that they are very, very much familiar with, so that the message sent to them really resonated with the place where they lived, their circumstances in which they found themselves, and so many times resonated with the difficulties of life that they were going through. That's the reason the Christians took the message to the church in Sardis to portray the post-Reformation period. Who were reformers? Can you give me some names? Lutherans? When you use the word Lutherans, what do you mean? Coming from Luther, we know who Luther is. What? Calvinists. Calvin, huh? Methodists. John Wesley. Big names. But if you go to the 16th and 17th century, they behaved as the official medieval church from which they separated. They were involved in orthodoxy, controversies. In Geneva, they were cutting people who did not accept the official position of the church. They cut their tongues. They're behaving in the same way as the church during the medieval period from which they separated. They just had the names Protestants, Reformers, Lutherans. Wesley, are still with me? But practically they were a lifeless movement without any hope. But praise God, you know how God loved them. we will see when we come to visit Philadelphia, a place is there. First Great Awakening, second Great Awakening, which was prompted by those Lisbon earthquake, darkening the sun, darkening the moon, and falling of the meteors, and suddenly that lifeless denominations suddenly became waken up, and the message of Jesus Christ actually started being preached. And you know that within the second Great Awakening, there was a Baptist farmer by name of William Miller. We found our rules there. I just want to tell you, God never loses the battle. It can appear for the moment, yeah. Satan prepares the surprises. It can be there. But I just want to tell you is, you know, during my 35 years of age, I learned God is always winner. Sometimes we think, you know, oh boy, when I leave the pastoral district, who will take care of them? You didn't take care before. God was taking care before. You were simply here working on behalf of God. God is always in charge. And I believe why we have this trip is we want also to be encouraged. Do you sometimes feel like John and Patmos? Surrounded by the sea. There is no way out. There is no way. Your churches are there, but there is no way out. You feel lonely, and you even think that God has forgotten you. But I just want to tell you is, if you find yourself on Patmos, whatever that Patmos means, some of you read in my book, that's my favorite statement, I'm quoted regularly, that the Patmos experience always results in the revelation of Jesus Christ. You know very well, Daniel had to go to Babylonian exile so that we have the book of Daniel. John had to go to Patmos so that we have the revelation of Jesus Christ. And many, because of the experience of Daniel and John, one day we find themselves in the kingdom of God. I want just to conclude with that. John was there on Patmos, wherever he turns, it's see. Jesus came to provide him the encouragement, to give him the hope. And the greatest hope was provided to John in chapter 21, verse 1. It says, and behold, I saw a new heaven and a new earth. The first heaven and the first earth have passed away. Come on, can you conclude the text? Can you conclude the text? That's why pastors, they need to rely on Greek. The Greek text does not say, and I did not see any sea there any longer. No, it says, and the sea, it's definite article in Greek. And the sea, there is no there any longer. Which sea for John? That was the sea by which he was surrounded on Patmos. Yes, one day when we get in the kingdom of God, that sea by which sometimes in our lives we are surrounded to. The first thing that we will see there when you are that sea that bothered me, that made me to suffer this earth, it's not present. It's not there any. So what we are doing is here, we have to understand, we are all in the dead dire situation of the church in Sardis. We have big names. We are Adventists. Okay, we have the message. We and everybody else is lost. I just want to tell you is Jesus tell us, make yourself straight. If you're walking this way, turn around, repent, and come back to me, because I'm your only hope. And even the lifeless church can become alive for Christ. And that's what Second Awakening was all about. Okay, so I believe that the experience that we have here. So when you get out, just watch a little bit. Yes. That mountain there. That mountain, I have a picture. I'm holding in my office. Always I look there. There is always surprises in our lives, but God always wins. May God bless you.
Why we brought him, so we're glad. Two things. Here, when you're sitting here, you know what it's called? Picture photo. No. These are the chief seats. And I want you all who are standing to look at who grabbed the chief seats. The second thing, though, this will preach. Yes. Notice where the synagogue is related to a very Hellenistic center. this synagogue was so relevant to its society that it is irrelevant. It has some interesting features. These things behind me, those are Roman things. Roman lions, Roman table, eagles. It's a very relevant sanctuary I'm saying synagogue, that if they'd been challenging the society, this sanctuary, this synagogue could not have been here. So we can be so relevant to the culture around us that we're spiritually irrelevant. And that was one of the problems. This sanctuary also had another distinguishing feature besides being the biggest, I think it's the biggest in Asia Minor.
Yes.
Actually, nation war, Sardis was one of the most glorious.
If I'm not mistaken, maybe the guy's going to tell us, the men and women would meet together. They sat at the same side. Nice. It was a very unusual synagogue, and maybe we might say a tad bit compromised, and in the words of Sardis, soiled their garments. In that next door, huge Hellenistic center, and over here, they seem to have no problem. And so if you're challenging society and you're not getting much pushback, it might say what your message is about.
Group picture over here, group picture.
They started at 2.5 years military sports training, which was also compulsory. And then, there was a very important ceremony, which was called toga virilis. All Roman citizens could wear toga, the white dress around themselves, but they couldn't wear unless they were the citizens. So to be a citizen, you should attend to the ceremony and ritual of toga virilis. That means all those youngs who fulfilled the education in sports as well were coming to the Prytaneum, the town hall. There was the sacred fire there, which was kept alive all the day and night. And they were guarding the fire there, Hestia Buleia fire. So the whole night they were waiting there. They were doing their ritual job there as well. And then when they were just coming out, they wear the toga. Then they became Roman citizens. That was the matter. So all gymnasiums have palestras like this one here. This is quite a big one for sports training. And almost all gymnasiums had baths behind the school building as well. We will see many examples of Roman baths later in Ephesus as well, in Aphrodisias as well. In every city there were at least 1 or 2 big baths. In Ephesus there were 5 big Roman baths. It's a saying that when you see Roman baths, then you can't see forests, because they were consuming wood to heat it up. So it's a general saying about the existence of Roman baths all through the world. And as an average, a Roman citizen was coming to a bath once a week at least. That was the average.
At least?
Well, in those days, not everybody had baths in their houses and homes. Only rich people, very rich people, had private baths in their houses. For example, in Ephesus, we're going to visit a place called terrace houses. On the slope at the center of the city, there were the 7 sections belonging to very rich people in the city. Some of them had baths inside, belonging only to them. But otherwise, they were only public baths, and the average usage was once a week. Slaves were not allowed, only during the festivities, festival days, which means every 1.5 months they had an opportunity to use the public baths in a Roman city as well. Yeah, I will give more information about how they used baths later on. If you'd like to take pictures, let's do so. And we have a shortage in time, so let's go back the same route to the buses. Because we will see the Artemis temple as well.
Is this area in here roofed? Or just the outside, right? And then a courtyard, basically?
Here it was not roofed at all, but you see the colonnades there, they had a roof over there.
Over and around the outside.
Around. Buildings behind it.
By what time we should be in the bus?
you see the fortification walls right on the melting, ground there. Look to the top, to the left side over there. You see there are still some ruins of walls there, but sometime, probably in a very short time, they will fall down due to the erosion. And the top Acropolis part of the city was up there on the hill, surrounded by fortifications. And there's a pyramidal, building there, which was a burial place for a Persian general. And this is the temple here. But before the temple, here, the first building just close to us was the ancient altar made out of red stone, and that was from 6th century before Christ. But later had renovations during Hellenistical and Roman ages as well. But the temple itself has two faces. The first face was from Hellenistic period, 3rd century BC, early 3rd century BC, and it had 20 big columns on the long sides and 8 columns at the east and west sides. And the columns are quite big, as you see, and the smallest block of rock above the column capitals were weighing 24 tons. They were carried up to 18 meters of height over the ground. So it was a gorgeous, construction work indeed, made by the engineers at Hellenistic era. But twice it was, renovated later on due to the earthquakes and the damage it got by time.
So the pillar
So
is
you
not...
see the pillars are from 3rd century BC. 2 of them are almost complete there on the right hand side, looking to east actually. And their capitals are Ionic, as you see. They have those bullhorn bends, downward bends on the top part over there. Sometimes they have volutes, like lines, vertical lines all around the column as well. But those ones here haven't got any volutes, and they were built by pieces. I mean, it's not a monoblock, stone. It was made one above each other, circular pieces put together. When they were doing so, the mid part was always a bit wider than the lower and the top part, because the human eye, when you look, you see them as straight from distance. If it is wide at the midpoint, but if it was straight, exactly straight, vertically, geometrically, you shouldn't see so. So they were aware of that, and that arranged accordingly, and it was a beautiful engineering work indeed.
Mr. Attila, I always bothered with my question. How were they able to make it so round? You see that today we know that you can do it only with machinery. You cannot do it. How were they able? I mean, it's so perfect, the same size, the same. For instance, in the Temple of Artemis, how many pillars were? 100 and some.
127.
They were identical, almost we would say in millimeters.
Even with
How were they able to do it?
Well, it was a lot of work, mostly by slaves.
Slaves.
And they had, soles. They were cooling down those soles by using water and pebble stones as well. At the moment, even today, it is not easy to cut marble plates. Although they got, diamond cutters, although they got electronically and pneumatically controlled systems to do that, they have to use a lot of water to cool down the, knives to cut the marble blocks. Even today, because Turkey is a big exporter, as I said. So whenever you see a marble factory or marble, plate factory, let's say, they always pollute the water around them actually, because they use a lot of fresh water.
I was confused in Didyma when I saw the Apollos temple. Actually, if I remember correctly, please forgive me, 3 of us, we're holding hands surrounding the pillar. How wide is it's such perfect
20 meters high.
20 meters high and almost millimeter there is no deviation. You cannot imagine. I mean I was so much puzzled.
Both Greeks and Romans were superior in engineering, let's say. That's why their armies defeated much more powerful armies in number. For example, Alexander the Great defeated 3 times the Persian king. The Persians always had bigger armies, but they were better educated, better engineering capacity. The Romans saw to they had great engineers actually. Logistics was perfect. But cutting was a long and difficult process indeed, to make those blocks, carry them, put above each other. It was a tremendous thing.
When I went to,
Into slavery, they took men. You never saw your, and then you work. When you can work, they kill you and throw away. I really see the history of human suffering. I'm sorry, I look through completely different eyes.
I mean, if you like to look at closer, because all those stylobot walls on the sides of the building is perfectly cut marble. When you get closer, you will see better. But please keep in a hurry to be on.
We visited Pergamon, and it was established for his brotherly love for his actual younger brother, therefore called Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love. But it's a wonderful name to have a Christian church, the city of brotherly love. It was established as a post city or military post city to guard the danger which might come from east, from the barbaric world of the Phrygians and the Galatians and the Cappadocians, the less civilized world of the lesser tribes of Asia Minor.
Yeah, it was very, very interesting that Attalus was supposed to be the ruler. He was Pergamese king, etc. But Romans, they were in favor of his younger brother. And everybody expected now there will be fight among the brothers, but it was not. Actually, Attalus faithfully served as the commander-in-chief, supporting his brother. That's how he got the name Philadelphus, which means love for his brother. I just want to add one more detail. Among other purposes of Philadelphia here was to promote the Greek culture, connected Phrygia and what was the name of
Phrygia and further behind
Galatia, to promote the Greek culture. I believe this is very, very good background for the understanding of the very letter. As you can see, there is not too much to be seen. We have to keep in mind that Philadelphia was the youngest of all cities. All other cities that we visit, they had long centuries history, but not Philadelphia. When was the second century?
Second century before
BC.
Christ.
So it was the youngest city. Okay, we don't know too much about these cities. There are not too much historical sources. We only know the background, how the city was established. So I know that usually all volunteers are martyred. They don't exist any longer. But I'm still looking for one volunteer who would read the message to the church in Philadelphia. Come on, any preacher.
I'll go.
Okay.
This one?
Yeah, Philadelphia.
To the angel of the church of Philadelphia, I write, these are the words of him who is holy and true, who holds the key of David. What he opens, no one can shut, and what he shuts, no one can open. I know your deeds. See, I have placed before you an open door that no one can shut. I know that you have little strength, yet you have kept my word and have not denied my name. I will make those who are of the synagogue of Satan, who claim to be Jews, though they are not, but they are liars. I will make them come and fall down at your feet and acknowledge that I have loved you. Since you have kept my command to endure patiently, I will also keep you from the hour of trial that is going to come on the whole world to test the inhabitants of the earth. I am coming soon. Hold on to what you have, so that no one will take your crown. The one who is victorious I will make a pillar in the temple of my God. Never again will they leave it. I will write on them the name of my God and on the name of the city of my God, the New Jerusalem, which is coming down out of the heaven from my God. And I will write also this on them, my new name. Whoever has ears, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches.
Let me just mention one feature of the messages to the seven churches. It's very interesting, the way how the letters are organized. They are organized according to the chiastic structure. I hope we are familiar with what chiastic structure is. Chiastic structure, you see today, when we make sermon, when we make preach, how do we do that? We make introduction. Then we have the content of the sermon, content of the book. And the most important is the last part, when we make the conclusion and we make the appeal. So everything what we want to do, everything what we want to achieve with our speech, is found at the end. The human hearts are actually moved with that appeal. In ancient times, in the Semitic custom, actually you make the introduction. Then you are trying to make your point. And then eventually you come to the center. In the center, you put the main point that you want to say. Once you do it, and to people it's very clear what you are trying to say, then you go back. You know, the previous part matches now the next part, and the previous part matches the next part, and the first part matches the last part. Can we practice it? You can see you have, and they match. They are parallel. You see, you have the church in Ephesus. What can we say about the church of Ephesus? It's faithful church. The church knows where it stands. Okay, that's the beginning. What is the last one on the chiastic structure? It's Laodicea. There is nothing good to be said about the church. Do you see? Okay. And now you're going to the second church, the church in Smyrna. Do you remember that? Nothing bad was said about the church, except the church lives in constant fear, so Jesus gently rebukes the church. But the problem that the church faced came from pagan environment and came also from the Jewish community. By the way, now we are going to Philadelphia. That's exactly. Do you see what we have in Philadelphia? There is nothing wrong about the church, except that they have just a little strength. They're surviving. Evidently, the pagan environment and the purpose of the city killed their Christian faith. So they are hardly surviving, but they are relatively still faithful to God. So there is still, that. But there is nothing wrong. There is no rebuke to that church. And second thing is, another problem that came from the Jewish community. Do you see that the second church, Smyrna, the same as you have the church in Philadelphia? You see how they mesh in the chiastic structure. I'm not saying about the next one. It will be in the next station. We will talk about that. So the background of the city that was really established, one of the strong purposes was to promote the Greek culture, because the Greek culture was lacking in the area of Phrygia and other territories. It was really, Philadelphia was made to be a missionary city, to send missionaries to promote the Greek culture. Within that background, Jesus is speaking to the church, telling the church that they are supposed to promote the gospel. And Jesus opens the door of opportunity. When he opens the door, nobody is able to close the door. But if he closes the door, nobody is able to open the door. Before the church is set the great door opportunities that Jesus says for his church. And then you will notice that the church really had struggle and suffering also from the Jewish community, as it was there in Sardis, okay, in Smyrna. But Jesus really has the patience for the church. There is still a great hope for that church. And Jesus says, since you have kept my command to endure patiently, I will also keep you from the hour of trial that is going to come on the whole world to test the inhabitants of the earth. I am coming soon. Hold on what you have, that no one will take what? Your Stephanos, you remember that? Come on. Your Stephanos crown from you, which is really, today we talk in the Orange Bus, we talk about Stephanos crown, which is not really a royal crown. By the way, for less that you know, that my name is biblical name. Stefanovic comes from the word Stephanos, which is really, okay, now you'll respect me, huh? Okay. Actually, that nobody can take the Stephanos crown. The Stephanos crown is the crown in the Bible, the whole New Testament, particularly in the book of Revelation, exclusively reserved for the victorious people of God. Stephanos crown is a gold medal. Different word. It is the garland that is put on the head. And people here in Philadelphia were very much familiar with that, because the Roman and Greek culture was very strong. So they were very much familiar with that language that was promoted here. And we will talk about this. Boy, I really should mention it. Every letter concludes with the promises that Jesus gives to the church. But probably you did not notice something significant. The best church, the church in Ephesus. Very good church, except losing the first love. How many promises does the church in Ephesus receive? Only one promise. The next church, the church in Smyrna, is still very good, but little bit down. Jesus gives two promises. You can go to the end of the letter, okay? You will see. The church in Pergamum, already struggling. False teachers are messing up there in the church. And Jesus gives her three promises to help him in that situation. The church in Thyatira is 50-50. Very divided church. And she needs help. And Jesus gives how many promises? Four promises. The church in Sardis just has a good name, but the reality do not fit the name. Okay. Jesus gives how many promises? He gives 5 promises. And the church in Philadelphia, struggling, has just a little bit strength. How many promises Jesus gives? 6. Can we count together? Yes. Okay, 6. We are here. Let's go there. To the one who overcomes, who is victorious, I will make him a pillar, number 1, in the temple of God. Never again they will leave it. Number 2, I will write on them the name of my God. Number 3, and the name of the city of my God, New Jerusalem. How many? 4. Which is coming down out of heaven from my God. And I will also write on them my new name. How many? we have 6 promises, okay? I missed something here, okay. I'm sorry when I'm running, okay, expect that, okay? It's a 6 promises. And the last church of Laodicea, the worst church, there is nothing to be said about the church. How many promises? 7. I got you.
No.
It receives only 1 promise. The worst church is struggling with identity, struggling with everything. There's nothing to be said. Only 1 promise. Which is the promise? Everybody, whoever comes, he will sit with me on my throne as I overcame and sat with my Father on his throne. Let me ask you something.
You can't beat that.
We are here. If suddenly a rich man, very rich man from any part of the world appears here and comes and say, boy, I really like the way your enthusiasm. And I want to do something special for you. I'll put $1 million in the bank on behalf of you. I will give you a good car and the best apartment here in Philadelphia. It will be you. But you can choose. I can adopt you to be my daughter. Which one would you choose?
Daughter.
You see, when you are with Jesus on his throne, then you have all other promises given to the churches together. Is that the good news?
Yeah.
The church really thinks that there is no hope for him. Jesus says, I'm standing on the door and knocking. And by knocking, I will take you to McDonald's. Is that what church says? No. I will enter, we will dine together. And the background to that story, we will dine together. It's the story taken from the book Song of Songs. When that lover is knocking on the door, says, please open. I want that we have a love dinner together. You know what happens? Come on. You're all married here. Except where is, yeah. You don't have rights. You know that. There is something when people dine together, when they eat together, as we did in the restaurant, we are talking, there is something people establish their relationship. So church in Philadelphia receives those 6 great promises. Has little strength, but with the promises of Jesus, she can stand on the feet. And that's why the Christians rightly identified the message to the church in Philadelphia to the time of the Great Awakening. Then Protestantism that previously reflected the lifeless church of Sardis. Just having the name, but the reality did not fit that name. Actually was followed by the church of Philadelphia. When the great missionaries were sent throughout the world, 2 Bible societies were established. Great movements, liberation of women, and all kind of liberation movements were established because people believe Jesus is coming soon. We have to be ready for that. And it's not because of the church, it's capable and able to come out of the situation, but because of those promises of Jesus. As you have your son, he's good boy, okay, you give promises, okay. But when your son goes down, what do? You multiply your efforts to take your child out of that situation. And that's what these messages to the churches are all about. I try to be as brief as I can, and with this I can finish.
All right.
This is on the left-hand side.
King Eumenes. So due to that, sometimes they say that it is the city of Hiera, the wife of Telephos. But in other words, its second meaning is it is the sacred city, because there were so many temples here, so many water sources, you know, a cult and ritual place for god men, and for Kibele were also worshipped here. And as there are even poisonous gases coming from a place called Plutonium, very close to, you know, Apollon's temple. So it was a ritual place. It was, you know, sacred even in the past, long during the pagan times as well. Let's proceed, because before sunset and before it gets dark.
This is a World Heritage Site?
Sorry?
Is it a World Heritage Site?
Yes, it is. It is one of the World Heritages by UNESCO.
Oh.
Hierapolis. You see, this is the new theater there. Ranko. Was to the other side of the city, to the west, actually northwest. But the first one over there was destroyed by an earthquake. So people transported most of the stones from that old, you know, theater and built this one at 1st century AD, at the end of 1st century AD and beginning of 2nd century AD there. It is very beautiful theater. The acoustics is very beautiful. Time to time there are concerts there. And even at the stage building, there were the reliefs, almost like statues, telling us the story about the birth of Dionysus, right at the stage over there. So let's go this way to see the terraces as well. 50 years here until he got retired. And then later on, professors from Lecce University in Italy, two professors, conducted the excavation. They were so successful that they got a medal and prize from Turkish government, because it's a very hard work here. You know, 60,000 trucks of stones removed from here, from this site. 60,000 trucks, because most of those, you know, ruins you see around were already sunk down under the precipitated calcium carbonate. So they had to use hiltis, you know, compressors, hiltis, to dig them down. And still the work goes on every year. Time to time there are concerts up there. In the beginning they were letting the rock concerts, pop concerts as well. But as they understood that it could give harm because of the high volume and because people, you know, give rhythm by their steps, you know. Then now only classical music is allowed there. And
the earthquake.
let's go this way. The excavators. I have attended twice the conferences of the excavators from this side. And one of us asked the professor, he said, sir, he said, what is the biggest difficulty that you meet time to time here? Is there any support from the government, or is there some problems around? He said, no, not at all. We get a very good support from the government and we do well, but we have a big problem with the Russian girls, he said. He's a, you know, joyful guy. He didn't understand at the beginning. He said, well, because those girls are walking around the terraces with their very small bikinis. And when the labor was working with their iltis, when they look at them, they sometimes put
They're all.
Yes, if you like, you can take pictures here. You see the water, the thermal water, which is originating from the antique pool, which is about nearly 400 yards from here to that direction. And as it gets cold and cold and cold gradually, then it precipitates, and by millions of years, those precipitations form those terraces, natural terraces, as you see just ahead of us.
Millions of years.
Wow.
I don't know about that.
2 million.
It is certainly a unique place in the world. There's a place in China which is almost 1/5 of the size of Pamukkale, as you see here, but it is yellow in color, not white. So just like cotton, you see, like cotton piles one above each other. It is a miracle that we see just ahead of us.
Wow.
The terraces up there at the central valley, little further up there, are the bigger ones, 5 to 6 meters in height, and there is the thermal water in them as well. In the past, people could walk here, spring here, even dip their bodies into the water there, but it's not allowed anymore. Because in that place, the color was changing, it was getting darker and darker. And when they observed that, no one is allowed with shoes. There is only a pathway, as you see people over there, that you can walk, but only with bare. So,
아니면 신발을 벗고 들어가고.
here it's not allowed yet. The matter was mentioning, the waters of Hierapolis, whether luke or warm or cold. Naturally, it was so, because there were all sorts of water originating here, really, in the nature and in reality as well. As I said, for example, here, the source of this water that you see, which formed those terraces, at the origin point, the temperature is 36.4 degrees Celsius. But when it goes down under 35, 34, then it starts to precipitate slowly and slowly. And then comes all the others above each other, forms this,
This is the
view as we see here.
lukewarm water that it's speaking of in Revelation.
Exactly.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
interesting.
When you take pictures, please proceed, because we have less time and we will see the other part.
이렇게 만지는 거. 기왕이 되린 뭐 그렇게 귀엽게.
face to face. They are sisters.
There's a graffiti on the walls of that, bath here. The graffiti says, "Our bath is the best in the world." It's the best in the world.
Yeah, you got that right.
Show you a general view of the city. But we will have a time here, after the information. So those who like to see the antique pool, they can go there and see the antique pool and the source of the water for those travertines. Those who like to walk around, they can go around the cypress trees over there. Those who like to see the antiquities around more, they can do so. But first, let's see and spot what to see and where they are. We have a big map now, just ahead of us, showing the things around. And let's see that panel where we have the large map of Hierapolis.
A lot of people are still back in the water.
Hierapolis?
Especially if you have an American accent. Where are we?
We are here.
We lost a lot of them.
Where they have gone? Probably they prefer to go to the water there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, other than the water here, this city wouldn't be here, right?
No, exactly. Yes, exactly. Laodicea was older than this city, as we're gonna visit tomorrow, and to which one of the letters of St. John was addressed. It was more industrial, it was more a living city. But this one was founded later than Laodicea, and this one was for treatment, for rituals, and for some time, for fortune telling, or fortune telling, rituals, and therapy as well. You see, there were two theaters, as I said. This is the old theater. If you look there to this direction, there is the cavea of the theater there. Still 3-4 lines of the audience are visible there, but most of the stones after the earthquake were taken to build the new one here, as we have seen when we were walking. right here. And yes, we are here. And if you like to see the antique pool, in which there are marble column capitals right in the water, and the source of that water, that sort of water with calcium carbonate, is just behind the pool over there as well. Those who like to see that place, you can just walk 120, 150 yards there and see the pool there. And behind the pool, you see this is the pool here. You see behind the pool, there is the temple of Apollo. There is the plutonium, where poisonous gases were coming out, and sometimes they were doing, rituals there as well. And this was the agora, which is right there, over there. You see the big building over there. This big area on the right-hand side was the agora. There was another Roman butt at the end of the street, and which was converted to a church later on. And after the city's Domitianus gate to the north, there is the big necropolis. According to the excavating people, there must be about 4,000 burial places there. And the oldest of those tombs or burials were from, third century, late 3rd century BC. And the latest, the newest ones, were from about 6th century AD. There are some Jewish people's burials there as well, with menorahs right at the lid. You can understand when you go there, but it's quite far from here. I mean, to walk up there takes at least 20-25 minutes, but it gets dark now. So let's say a time. What about half an hour? Is it enough? Now it is 6:30.
7 o'clock.
Well, 7:15, let's say. 7:15. Can you see that ruins up there? It's a huge cathedral-like church building dedicated to Saint Philip, because he was martyred there.
Philip.
Yeah. I mean, in the beginning there was a small chapel there, but during Justinianus, the Roman emperor, a big octagonal, 8-sided octagonal church was built there. Each side was 20 meters in length. So it's like a cathedral, and it was a pilgrim road. You see, pilgrims were starting from the pool there, going all the way, walking all the way through the path up to the cathedral, and they were taking stamped bread and stamped wine cups there for their prayers up there. Some of those stamped bread discovered later on, and 2 of them are now exhibited in Virginia Museum in USA.
Oh, we'll just go to Virginia then.
And just last year, very recently, they discovered a real burial place, the Italian archaeologists, and they found, they believe that they found the real burial place of St. Philip there. But now they are examining, trying to get DNA and, understand it, whether it was really belonging to St. Philip or was he someone else. We don't know yet, but their opinion is most probably that was Philip's, burial place.
Where will they match his DNA with?
Bones. Because they were bones, the body was down. And there are sources from, there are some other sources in Vatican.
They know his relative?
Told them that most probably belonging to Philip. There. So perhaps it is the most practical way now.
If you go this way.
Yeah, this way to the arch and come back.
Okay. So what's...
여긴 좀 따뜻하네요.
야, 이게 뭐야? 이게 뭐야?
비디오.
비디오야?